Yay! Am I the narrator?
No. You could still be you. Hannah, do you want to be the narrator for this? Because you'll find out why I had Seb be the narrator very soon.
Sure. Okay. The wind whips violently in Devon's face. It's powerful enough that he can barely breathe. The ominous sound of the sirens were really the only thing that guaranteed he'd be home as soon as he possibly could be. He always took their warning seriously, because what they warned of always terrified him. So now, in this haze of pain and horror, he wonders why he didn't heed the warnings. The mild-wide tornadoes that rip across the plains of his home state evoke a primal fear in him that few other things do. He'd felt that fear moments before his world became a red flash of pain. Before he saw Artie crumple lifeless to the ground.
Oh.
At the same time, a pop echoed through the air.
I'm sorry, but yeah, Artie got killed off screen.
Okay.
Off screen, Noah?
Yeah.
Lame.
I know, like, genuinely when I found out about that, I was like, no, Artie couldn't have died like that, right? And then I got to the end of this and was like, fuck.
Oh no. Oh god.
That's BS.
So that brings up the question, for the rest of this, whenever we get to scenes with Brian, do you want to, should Hannah voice Brian, or would you like to attempt to voice Brian, or would you prefer to be the narrator?
I can attempt, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I'd prefer to be a narrator.
Okay, if you would rather be the narrator, then let's do that.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Because, yeah, when I found that out, I was like, well,
Sick.
damn.
Artie's dead.
I mean, that's the thing about casting in the middle. Like, Artie is at least a major enough character, but what the fuck?
Well, no, it's also a response to, this is sort of an echo of Echo, if that makes sense. Because in Echo, you meet this new character, you're like, oh no, those two are actually the good ones for each other, right? You're like, oh, okay, hey, what's his name? It's the better version of...
Kudzu.
Kudzu's the better version of Leo, and like, I wouldn't say what's his name is a better version of TJ, he's just more chill.
Oh, you mean Julian?
Julian, right? I wouldn't say he's the better version of, but he's more realistic, right?
So he was Raven like another version of Carl, in your opinion?
Almost. What happens if you have like a guy who still likes video games, still like, but he gets out and gets a job, right? Like, so like each of them, and then you have Artie, who's like, hey, I'm a chill friend, and like we're the new friend character, and then psh, no, we're not.
So I'll say about those characters, for the 5 characters that kind of join the group like that, they are more just like they're like the 7th Ranger or the 6th Ranger essentially. So you got the normal group, and then you got this kid that like comes up and gets powered up into being a protagonist within that route.
Yep.
So like for Carl's route was Raven, obviously Kudzu, and I think like what's hilarious is the fan community even says Kudzu wasn't a side character; he was a main character. And then you've got in TJ's route Julian, and Julian, weirdly enough, feels like even less than a side character because of how little he does.
Yep.
But you'll get another side character who's actually like truly like a good side character in Flynn's route named Daxton. And all I'm going to tell you as a spoiler about him is he's a Trekkie.
Nice.
So that's your little disapproval of him being like another version of Flynn. He's not. He's actually Flynn's roommate.
He's just way cooler than
Flynn's
Flynn.
roommate.
Yeah, no, literally, that's how he gets introduced in the story.
Hi, I'm just Flynn's roommate.
And then the one that I found the funniest was Micah. And I've chosen Harry to voice Micah because basically Micah gives off little shit energy. Not saying Harry's a little shit, but I feel like Harry can voice little shits very well.
Harry definitely can pull off little shit energy. Yeah.
So yeah. For the rest of the scene though, Hannah, if you'd like to be the narrator, or do you want to hand that over to Seb? Up to you.
Either way.
I'm fine. I don't have a preference.
Okay. Then I say Hannah should finish up this one, and then when we get back to where she has to voice Brian, then it's you.
Okay.
Because yeah, after this scene, there's 2 scenes left after this.
Okay.
Alright. So before he saw Artie crumple lifeless to the ground, at the same time, a pop echoed through the air. before he was made to drink from the plastic bottle of water the other bear had brought out of his trailer, and before his paws were tightly bound above his head. As Devon briefly comes in to the red glow of this metal container he's in, to the sound of metal chains and the feeling of cramped heat, he knows he should be doing something. He should be helping someone he deeply cares about. Lupita, Artie, Cameron.
Cameron.
His voice is
Excuse me,
rough.
let me do that again.
Okay, just say it.
Cameron.
There you go.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, I think.
Can I go back from here? No. It's, God.
Here, if you
No, we
yeah,
can
just
go.
move on.
his voice was rough and dry. There we go. His chest feels as if it's being crushed. Devon sinks back into the darkness, even while his mind roils in terror. Even as the F5 tornado continues to barrel right toward him.
Alright, 2 scenes left.
Sick. Cameron sits at the table as the bear busies himself near the stovetop with his back to the coyote. Again, the coyote contemplates leaving, either by asking Brian again or just walking out the door. Another glance toward the window confirms Raincoat Monster is still out there, this time standing behind the trees, perched on a branch, still watching. Cameron quickly looks away again. Feels deep down that if he leaves, another terrible thing is going to happen. While he believes the bear's story about what happened, something about his trailer is extremely uncomfortable, making him even more anxious.
Almost like if you did your spirit touch here, you might hear like the voices of like nearly 20-something people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Think-
roll for sensing something, please.
Oh God.
Roll for spiritual
You ro-
awareness.
You roll a 1. You don't sense anything.
Actually, if I remember correctly, the Brian's death count in Echo, I remember was a lot lower than I thought. I thought it was like 19, but it was actually something closer to like 8, if I remember right. I just had mixed it up because of another number that popped up at one point.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So yeah, he hasn't killed a lot of people, but he has killed multiple people. And considering
And
he's
all
had
in
5
horrifying
years as
ways,
well to
yeah.
do it in this horrifying murder town now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put probably the number around a dozen at this point, I bet.
Cam rolls for spiritual check.
And that one.
Nat 1. Cam senses nothing.
No,
Cam's
actually,
fine.
even worse. Every time he rolls in that one, that's when he gets like one of those horrifying visions.
Oh, yeah, of what's
he
outside.
should have been getting like really good visions this entire time, but he just keeps getting nat ones each time.
Nice.
Yeah. I do think in some way the spirits are going to help him
Probably.
and help him get to like Dev and stuff, but we'll see.
So I'm gonna point this out before we continue again.
Mhm.
I think that this is going to definitely have something to do with like the overarching story between the Smoke Room, Echo, and Arches, where this is going to truly be the end of whatever's going on in Echo.
Okay.
Because in Echo, they kept saying you're only going in circles. And there's this circle motif about like how everything is cyclical. But an arch is literally a half circle.
That
has a
ends,
beginning
no
and
less.
an end.
yeah.
Yep. Which, fun fact of St. Louis Arch is by technical definition is not an arch, but you know, it's a parabola.
Oh my god, how could you say horrible things about St. Louis?
Can't believe.
The internet rages on us.
No, I'm only joking that
Oh,
joke. 'Cause
I know.
You know.
I know your feelings about St. Louis.
He thinks that must have something to do with his upbringing, the long, narrow space feeling familiar in the worst of ways. It's like suddenly falling ill, and being reminded of all the awful things one has when they're especially sick. Meanwhile, Brian is chattering on about how chamomile is particularly effective when it comes to anxiety, and Cameron vaguely wonders why he's moving around so much if he's just making tea.
Have you ever played this game called Teacup? It's a really cute game. says Brian.
Mostly, though, Cameron is trying to think clearly, get his thoughts to line up correctly with the fog he still feels clouding his brain. It's making him extremely tired, and a couple of times the coyote is convinced that he's still dreaming. It's almost like he's high again, but without any of the positives of being high. His anxiety is already calming down, though, despite the worry of whatever was in that forest might have done some kind of damage to his brain. He focuses his thoughts on Devon, trying to think clearly. Would the bear really leave him alone like this? He could have at least left him a message to let him know that this is what he wanted, that Cameron is safe in this situation. But Cameron also knows that it wouldn't have happened that wouldn't have been all that practical. If Devon was really in a hurry, which he definitely would have been, he would have left him behind if he knew it was for the best, and if he knew the situation was safe.
He also would have left a fucking note.
Yes, he would have.
Hey, I don't appreciate people not understanding that I love Dev. I love Dev way too much. Just leave him alone. Some
You mean
random
Cameron?
person at camp. Someone. I am Dev. Cameron, way too much. Just leave him alone with someone. Nice.
Oh.
I've had a busy 3 weeks, okay? My brain isn't functioning at full.
It's okay. At some point, I need to show you the new roles that I made for us on the recording server. I gave everyone their own personal pet nickname.
Nice. What's Hannah's in mine? The Eternal Late?
No, I made them nice.
That's what I'd call us.
I'm not going to spoil yours, because yours I think you'll appreciate when you get to see it. Hannah's, though, I think I had yours be Jenna / the same one.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
She's the same one. That's why we have her playing Brian, because only a really sane person can play Brian.
Not to mention, he also has a very high-pitched voice.
Yes.
I mean, I could have probably done Brian, but like I was doing Chase at that point.
Yeah, no, and that would not make sense for you to be doing that
Freaking
much
hate
for
that
both
guy.
Brian and
Mhm,
Chase.
Because Chase also is so hard to do because he's the narrator on top of that, and that's just like, ugh. How about I just talk to myself for an entire like 3 hours while you guys just sit there?
Watch you talk to yourself.
There isn't really a way he could have left the message anyway, except for maybe a text, but with no phone and no service. This Brian guy really wants to help them, though. He should have gone to the highway instead. He has to have a car, right? It's not like he can just survive out here in his old trailer. Cameron fixes his face into a pleasant smile, knowing that it seemed to set the old bear at ease whenever he did.
Do you have a car?
Brian, seemingly absorbed in what he's doing, glances back.
Well, I kind of share a truck with another guy in town. He happens to be out of town with that truck right now. Of course he would be, right?
Oh, okay.
Brian smiles at him again.
I can see why Daniel likes you. You're a friendly kid.
Oh, you mean Devon?
Shit, yeah. The brain doesn't remember things like it used to.
If I remember correctly, Daniel's actually one of the names of the kids that got
It
killed.
is. Daniel's the name of the
Yeah, 'cause-
track guy.
No. I don't think the track kid got his name revealed. But I do remember, like, when at the end of Leo's route, there was like a list of names, and I think Daniel was one of the ones that they mentioned in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Jeez.
That's the button I need to press. You're fine.
Cameron stares at the table, feeling like that exchange was very strange, but it's hard to think through that cloudiness. Despite the dulled anxiety, the feeling is worrying him more and more.
I'm actually feeling really weird. I'm so tired.
Well, considering what happened to you, that makes sense.
Brian's annoyed.
Not to pry, but do you do any drugs?
No, not anymore at least. I mean, I had some weed like hours ago, but that should have worn off by now.
Brian shrugs.
People always say weed ain't a big deal, but it's probably what fucked me up the most back when I first tried it.
Cameron listens to the sound of liquid being poured into a cup.
Yeah, I don't think I like it. But I shouldn't still be high, right?
You shouldn't. But after my first time smoking, I felt high for fucking years after, even when I wasn't touching the stuff.
Cameron feels a prickle of worry underneath the haze.
Years?
Yep. It's, what's it called? Depersonalization?
Which, like,
That's really funny.
so for me, Brian's a confusing character because in Echo, like, he was watching, like, children's cartoons and laughing giddily and
Yeah.
using very short words. Like, it seemed like he was uneducated. In this iteration, he seems to be somewhat educated, which makes me, like, also lean more back into my theory about multiverses or whatever. Because this Brian and Leo's Brian feel very different from each other.
Yeah.
Messy trailer versus this Brian, like, knowing words like depersonalization and knowing some psychology terms. And I'm like, that doesn't check out for Leo's Brian.
Although it is the wrong word.
True.
He's talking about drugs, so it would be desensitization. But he says depersonalization, which is
That's a good point.
which is ironic for Brian to say, because what is he towards people?
Yeah.
Depersonalization is when you no longer see humans as humans, and Brian doesn't.
Made me feel like my own paws were or dissociation.
Yeah, it's dissociation is what he's really looking for.
Yeah. Made me feel like my own paws weren't my own, and everything looked all weird and distorted, like a filter was in front of my eyes.
Cameron vaguely recalls some of his own friends describing this exact same thing, even when their trip was supposed to be over. He'd experienced it himself while he was under the influence of various dissociatives. Having the same experience while he's supposed to be sober is borderline terrifying, though.
Wait, does that?
His worry and panic breaks through the surface for a second, and he feels like, for that moment, he surfaced back from the muddy depths of his confusion before slipping back under. He can't live in a dream for the rest of his life. But what even is his life? Sitting here in the trailer with an old, slightly smelly bear. How did he even get here again? Where's Dev?
Oh shit.
Cameron suddenly grips the table, paws shaking as he feels as if he's lifting out of his body somehow, and that he has to hold on to something to remain in place.
Hey, you're all right there, kid. Here,
Brian ambles over to the fridge and opens the freezer, pulls out the ice tray and drops a few cubes into the mug, ice clinking loudly. He stirs for a few moments, then turns back to the trembling coyote.
hope you don't mind the ice, but it should be cool enough to drink now.
Still confused and terrified, and just wanting something to do, to focus on, Cameron reaches out for the mug, and the bear is holding out to him. He takes it in a trembling paw.
Oh no.
Ah!
It's filled with honey and a strong taste of ginger, and it's unlike any chamomile tea he's had before. The amount of honey is surprising, and he briefly wonders if it's a bear thing, even though Demet never seemed to have much of an affinity for it.
Speciesist Cameron.
Still, Cameron doesn't get the full flavor of the concoction until he's finished it, and as he exhales, an odd nutty taste mixed with what Cameron can only describe as dirt lingers on the back of his tongue. Cameron frowns at the bizarre, terrible tea. He can't help pulling a face as he looks into the mug, a thick, round glob of honey remaining at the base while the dark particles slowly collect around it. It's distracting enough that his panic attack is terminated before it can really begin. Brian laughs.
Sorry about that. I like to add in kava root to soothe anxiety, too. Should have warned you.
Cameron had thought the taste was somehow unfamiliar, but he supposes that any kind of root would have had an earthy, bitter taste.
Oh, it's okay. Just wasn't expecting it. I read about kava a few times while I was looking for ways to help with anxiety. Never tried it, though.
Well, get ready for it to change your life. Got me off all my chill pill meds. I do have some leftover bars if you need something stronger, though.
Xanax? I'll wait and see.
Well, that would be nice. Cameron already feels like he's falling asleep, so it doesn't seem like the best idea.
No.
Well, he mostly believes the bear's story. He doesn't want to be completely unaware of what's happening right now.
I'm guessing you have some experience with it before, huh?
Cameron frowns at the table, not sure what to say. He doesn't really want to discuss his past with a stranger, even if the guy seems like he would understand. Brian puts his paws up, like he's showing that he's unarmed.
Hey, I won't judge, kid. I was into that lifestyle for most of my life before I started turning things around.
Well, Cameron is still cautious. He doesn't want to make it seem like he's suspicious. It doesn't feel like the best idea to sour things between him and the only person with him in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, I did a bit of everything in middle school and high school. Only thing I got hooked on was opioids, though.
Oof. You and half the country, kid. That's a rough one.
The tiredness is starting to plateau, if not recede slightly, and Cameron feels an odd but welcome sense of empathy towards this bear. Must be the kava kicking in. Brian's face appears a bit more defined and clear, and there's a warmness in his eyes.
It was my first drug, too. I experimented with everything else because I was trying to find something less addictive and harmful.
Brian shakes his head.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. There ain't much out there that makes you feel that good. That's what I'm told anyway.
Brian chuckles.
I took just one of my dad's hydros and ended up puking my guts out for hours. Guess I'm lucky that I can't keep them down.
Cameron thinks about that, and how nice it would have been if he had become violently ill whenever he tried opioids, or any drug for that matter.
Yeah, I'd say that's some good luck. I quit in college and haven't done it since, though.
Good for you.
Brian gazes down his nose at Cameron, starting to frown. Cameron's ears twitch as he senses the sudden change in mood.
Now, I don't mean to bring this up again, but did your visions get more intense when you did heroin?
At first, Cameron wants to correct the bear and say that he's never done heroin, but he stops and thinks back. Of course, his visions got worse whenever he was on certain drugs, including the opioids, but he had assumed that back then they were just agitating his already present delusions. It was only today that he made the connection between drug usage and hallucinations, or visions.
Yeah, actually, and a few times on other stuff, too. Does that happen to you?
Definitely.
Again, feelings of empathy grow in this coyote's chest.
Look at that, like, fucking Brian's face. That is such a good face to feel empathy towards.
I feel so at home with this guy.
Look at that face. Yeah.
And this is like, I think this is proof that Cameron might not always have the best judgment, unfortunately.
No, especially with this situation.
Better than Chase's, but yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Chase has like the worst judgment.
Chase would have been like, oh hey, this guy seems kind of nice.
Cool.
Yeah, sure, I'm gonna hang out and relax and fall asleep. I feel
I'm
tired.
gonna make out with Brian, make Leo jealous.
Actually, he would. That's the worst part.
There are others like him, just like him.
Maybe I'm not going crazy then. I keep going back and forth on that.
Brian chuckles a bit.
Well, not normal crazy anyway, right? Say,
Brian looks carefully at Cameron again, and the coyote is distracted by the glow that seems to be emanating from the bear's eyes. Oddly enough, the intensely vivid and defined fur seems to be rippling, as if blowing in the wind, even though they're inside. Is this kava?
you ever tried something more trippy, like acid or shrooms?
Cameron shifts uncomfortably at the last word.
Yeah, both. Acid was fine, but nothing weird happened. Shrooms just kind of fucked me up, and I saw all kinds of things.
That's too bad. That one can be a real eye-opener.
Oh,
Cameron isn't sure what else to say, feeling just a bit uncomfortable again.
But yeah, most drugs make you see more things. Only ones that don't are stims. That's why so many people get into meth.
Brian chuckles again, but this time it sounds a bit dark, sinister even.
Only problem with that is meth still makes you see shit. But only because it makes you go crazy.
Arches and half circles.
Yeah.
Cameron looks back down at the table. He wonders about his mother again, and if maybe she was like him. Maybe she took the stimulants because she was trying to stop the visions, but ended up starting a wave of hallucinations and delusions instead. Cameron watches the good wood grain on the table shift and move slightly, like waves on an ocean. And then it hits him.
Oh my god.
It hits him hard. The aftertaste of the tea, why it was familiar, why the things are moving in inexplicable ways, why everything is feeling more fucked up by the second. He's been here before. A moment seems to blink out of existence from Cameron's memory because the next thing he knows, he's already standing up, the chair clattering to the ground behind him. He stares at Brian with wide eyes, mouth open, but he can't seem to say anything. He can't think of what to say if the bear did what he thinks he did. Brian stares back, watching Cameron carefully in a way that tells the coyote that the bear isn't surprised at all by this reaction, and that makes Cameron even more afraid. The cozy tree lighting of the trailer becomes more ominous, red and dangerous, and the bear in front of him seems to roar. Into a demon.
No. No, no, no. What did you give me?
Cameron looks widely at the coffee mug.
You need to calm down, understand?
What did you give me?
I think you already know the answer to that, so why don't you sit down and get it together?
The bear's face is so warped, but Cameron honestly can't tell if it's real or not.
Was it psilocybin? Did you drug me with shrooms?
Brian says nothing, and he's right that Cameron knows. He could never forget this feeling.
Oh my god, why? It ruined my life.
Cameron is heaving for a breath, the sounds of his gasping almost drowning the bear out.
Sit down and I'll explain.
But Cameron has no intention of sitting down. The sensations and visuals are just as bad as last time, if not worse, and he's only at the beginning. The fear and panic reach a dizzying level, and Cameron is running around the coffee table for a door. And he's on his back, his chest, spine, and the back of his head aching. Brian is on top of him, and Cameron is on his back. He can see the coffee mug shattered on the ground a few feet away. Cameron struggles, wheezing for breath.
Let me go. I can't breathe.
Brian responds by squeezing his arms tighter, leaning more weight again on Cameron's torso.
Ah! Stop! I'm sorry! I'm sorry!
He doesn't even know what he's apologizing for, just hoping that maybe it will get the bear to stop.
And I thought you were cute when you were smiling.
That statement, for whatever reason, is the scariest part of what's happening right now. He starts to scream for the only person he can think of right now.
Devin! Help me! Devin! Devin! I can't yell that well because of my neighbors. Yeah.
They'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Brian sounds legitimately disgusted as he pulls himself off of Cameron. The coyote prepares to scream again, but sees Brian's foot lash out and kick him into the side, sending him up against the base of the counter. Then, leaning over him with both of his giant paws on the edge of the counter, he starts kicking Cameron over and over. Cameron yelps and wheezes. The blow is hard enough that he's worried the bear is definitely going to break something if he hasn't already. He thrashes and rolls, trying to escape. Then, one kick catches him and particularly hard at the base of his sternum, and he violently curls up, a loud frog-like croaking noise escaping his throat. Brian pauses as the sounds continue emanating from Cameron's mouth. Cameron can hear the bear breathing heavily over him as Brian watches his agonized writhing, almost like he's fascinated by it. After nearly a minute, the terrible noises turn back into gasps and then turn into sobs as Cameron stays curled up on his side, one arm around his midsection while the other is pressed over his eyes. Brian doesn't move, just watching as Cameron cries on the floor. At first, Cameron thinks it might be better just to keep his eyes closed and try to disappear into the darkness, maybe wake up again, but in a new place this time. Anywhere seems better than here. But that's when slightly curved, glowing gold lines begin expanding and shrinking behind his eyelids, and Cameron whines at the terrible reminder of what's going to happen. He's going to trip, and it's going to be terrible. Cameron pulls his paw away from his eyes and finds that what he sees isn't much better. The huge bear is crouched in front of him, his fur now a writhing, pulsating mass of a thing that almost seems to like another living creature is covering the bear.
Now listen. Listen good. Because what you do next might decide if I let you go or not.
This is a dream. It has to be a dream. Everything that's happened, not just in this trailer, but this whole town, it has to be a dream, a hallucination, a trick. This can't be happening.
I need you to talk to some folks I used to know. If you're really one of those psychics, if you can fix my problems, I might just let you out of this town.
We got one scene left.
Cameron?
What have you made?
Either of you can do it.
Oh, okay.
Devin comes to again, and he blurts out the name without thinking. He's not sure how long it's been since last time he woke up. It feels like hours, possibly even days, since he was last conscious. He'd been dreaming. Something about insects crawling and biting at his arms, and tornadoes. A twisting force. His realization that his arms are what brought him back to the waking world. They'd fallen asleep. Now the tingling is so bad that it feels like they're covered in crawling, writhing ants made of molten lead. The bear grunts in discomfort and tries to bring them down from above his head, but he isn't able to. They come up short and he hears rattling sound close to his ears, which twitch at the loudness. Chains. Devin freezes, keeping his eyes closed, unsure if whoever did this is to him is close by. Although it's hard to think through all the haziness, the memories come back to him rather quickly. First, he remembers walking deeper into the woods before the strange bear went to his trailer to get something. He came out with a bottle of water, claiming it was for Cameron. Then, after walking further into the dense forest, they came upon a white van. The exact kind of van that would make people most suspicious. Devin did become more suspicious, but by that time, it was already too late. The old bear had pulled a gun on them, and one that wasn't his shotgun, and told them both to get in the van. Artie started to run, and the other bear didn't hesitate to shoot him, aiming for his head. Devin isn't sure, but he could swear that he saw a spray of something, whether it be fur, blood, or worse, fan out from the back of Artie's head before he dropped. Devin's fingers and toes clench inward as he thinks about that moment. The sound, the suddenness of it. But mostly he remembers the way Artie fell. It was instant, like strings that held him up had been cut, crumbling so quickly that Devin isn't sure that he'd been killed. At At that point, Devon did everything the old bear had told him to do, including laying Cameron on the rough desert floor. Devon tries to keep from whining as he wonders if that might be the last time he saw Cameron, and then laid down in the van and letting him bind up his arms up. He thought about fighting back in that moment, but it was so quick that before he knew it, he was secured and he was made to drink from the bottle. Now he's in the very center of the tornado, a twisting force. Devon clenches his eyes shut even tighter, feeling moisture gather at the corners. Around the point is equal to force times distance. But he opens them a moment later, realizing that his captor would have seen all the movements he'd made. Perpendicular to force. He's alone in the van. His eyes sting and the bear realizes that he's sweating heavily. This metallic box he's stuck in is hot, almost overwhelmingly stifling. He worries for a moment that he slept through the night, and now it's sunrise and he's about to cook to death in this van. But after gauging the light, he decides it's still around sunset, just a few hours after what had happened, after Hardy had been killed.
Shit.
Devon squeezes his eyes shut again, feeling tears leak out into the moist fur on his cheeks. He allows himself this moment, but quickly focuses again, knowing Cameron is still out there with that bear. That's enough to get a rise from Devon, one of that builds into a wave in his chest. A combination of adrenaline and terror, but mostly fury. While the brutality of this backwoods bear evokes fear in Devon, it also makes him angry that anyone would feel they have the right to do what the old bear did. He opens his eyes again and takes in his surroundings. He's lying flat on his back, arms stretched above his head. He can feel that it's a pair of handcuffs that are holding him in place. There's enough give that slowly he's able to turn over on his stomach. The action is incredibly painful, and Devon can't help but grunt loudly, his arms feeling that they might fall off as they spasm. Slowly, painfully, he pulls himself into a kneeling position, getting a better look at his predicament. He realizes that these handcuffs are more like shackles, meant to hold bear-sized creatures like himself in place. They're bolted to the floor of the van. Devon glances up suddenly, his ears catching what sounds like a faint cry from outside the van.
Cameron?
Devon's voice comes out hoarse and crackled once more. Was that Cameron? It sounded like him. Devon is still groggy from whatever was in that water bottle, but he's sure he heard the distant sound of his boyfriend's voice. The fact that it's now so suddenly absent convinces Devon that was definitely Cameron. He strains to listen for several more seconds, but can't hear anything. He looks down at the heavy chain that linking metal cuffs around his wrists. Unbreakable. Still, he finds himself foolishly yanking at the shackles, hoping there might be some kind of give in the slightly rusted chain and bolts.
Shit.
Tears fill Devon's eyes, the feeling of falling forever returning. He'd felt this way only a few times before. The first time being while he was running home after he'd found Lupita's body. The last time being when he saw Arturo getting shot. And now, knowing that his boyfriend could be at the mercy of this bear whose intentions Devon can't even begin to guess. He just knows that they're very, very bad. But seeing the faces of those people, it changes something in Devon. A cool, icy calm descends on him, and he looks at the chains carefully. His classes in physics had taught him all about the way in which forces exerted can seemingly accomplish things that seem impossible. So even while his heart hammers in his ears, even while his brain is clouded with dense fog of sedation, Devon analyzes the chain and bolts holding it in place. Torque. continued.
There we
Oh,
go.
shit.
my
And that was
God.
build 5.
Very cool.
All right, let me go ahead and stop the recording. Unless you guys have anything you want to say.
That was fun.
That was intense and fun. Yes.
Oh yeah. Since I know you're gonna have to move and Matt's also moving soon too, I'm thinking about like for future builds just meeting online in the future, so that way we can get like everyone who's part of the Arches gang
Yeah.
to come back for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, say goodbye, everyone.
Bye.